We're on this computer. All right, y'all. So I'm Coach Griffith. For those who don't know me, I've been the coach of the esports team for uh 4 years now. Yeah, 2019 was when I took over. And the esports team started in the spring of 2018. So I missed that very first semester, but I've been here since then. I coached other sports like tennis and academic team and things like that. But when this started, I decided to give all my time to this. There's a lot of big changes this year, which is why I wanted to have a parent information meeting so you all aren't like left in the dark on what's going on, especially for returning people who might be confused at why such a big change on certain things. So I think at this point, it's probably worth just briefly for those who don't know going over the fact that like the way esports works in Kentucky is KHSAA has a deal with a company called Play Versus that decides they together decide which games we're going to be playing. They don't provide the games or anything like that. They just decide like these ones are varsity and everything else is not. So when we say, oh, we compete in these games, it's not because we wouldn't want to compete in other games. It's because that's not an option to us. And so we try to keep all of our focus towards this. Um, so, maybe as things change in the future, maybe that'll be a thing. But for now, uh, it is important to note that it is not our decision as coaches, or even coaches across the state. It's a KHSAA plus Play Versus decision. Okay, so what's normally happened because of this partnership is we are the only sport that competes in 2 seasons a year, fall and spring. And what was great about that for a long while was kids who might be able to participate only in one could do so, or kids who wanted two shots at a state title could do so. But the things that we both Coach Rinsenbrink and I started noticing, and coaches across the state, not just in our program, because if it was just ours, I would get advice from other coaches on how to deal with this. But there was huge levels of burnout. The number of kids who made it from semester to semester or year to year, or even all 4 years, was actually very low. Kids would stop enjoying things. It became uh, very hard. And I think a lot of it was because how long the year was. If we did the fall, we would actually already be going, and we would start like the last week of August, and we would pretty much keep going all the way into the last week of April, making it the longest sport in all of high school sports. Right, every other sport has a much longer off season, and because we have 2 seasons, our off season is basically just summer break. And for a lot of kids, they felt like that was enough, but then over time, you could just see lack of motivation, lack of even if they said they were motivated, you could see they're practicing less than they would like to. They're not enjoying the game as much. So we've run into this issue, and it's not just us; it's across the state. So us and a lot of coaches started talking, and we were like, "We should be a one semester sport, just like every other sport. This is a big problem for us." Um, and regardless of, so a lot of kids are speculating, is this a money problem? I not necessarily know. Um, does Play Versus charge a lot of money? Yes. But is that the reason why we're switching from 1 season to, or from 2 seasons to one? No. The biggest reason being burnout. Us coaches are really struggling. We don't get paid for 2 seasons. We get paid for one. We just still have to work 2 seasons. It's been very hard to keep up. And the kids, a lot of kids who are no longer on the team will readily admit, had they only done 1 season a year, they would have done all 4 years. And I've had that conversation with pretty much every student who's ever quit. It is not because they didn't like being on the team; it was because of this issue of burnout. Um, and again, I found this from every coach that I talked to. I have a Discord with pretty much every coach in the entire state of Kentucky where we all bounce ideas off each other or talk about the future of esports. And this is something that comes up. So then the question becomes, well, why are we still with Play Versus? At the state level, that's a reminder to record the video, which I've already done. So good for me. Um, um, at the state level, leadership got changed at the KHSA level. Rob Caption is now in charge, and to be fair to him coming in his first year doing it, I wouldn't also want to make huge sweeping changes my first year either. But he's been very receptive and open to us, like after this year, making those bigger changes. But us as coaches, I wasn't ready to wait talking over with Rinsenbrink and talking over with some of the kids, it's best for us if we don't compete in the fall and only focus on competing in the spring. And we're not the only school to do this. In fact, looking across, I'm not even sure there's going to be a fall season because of the number of schools that, like, as Lafayette goes, so the rest of the state goes. For those who don't know, we won a lot of state championships and or at least are in the state finals. And a lot of teams look at to us for what we're going to do to model what they're going to do. And it's not like I convinced them all to like boycott the fall. I just said we weren't competing, and next thing I know, in the fall we were just going to do spring. And next thing I know, pretty much every school is agreeing to do the same. Um, there's not even 15 schools that are competing in Smash, which is usually one of the biggest. Last I checked, there were only 3 Madden teams for the fall. So again, I don't even know if there's even going to be a fall season at this point, because again, every school's facing the same issue that I'm talking about tonight. So what does that leave us open to do? A lot of things that we never had the time to do. If we started in August and we're competing until the end of April, most of the kids, if I tried to squeeze in anything extra, that's even more of a reason to ask for burnout. We could never go travel for tournaments because I was, we got to stay as stress-free as possible. A lot of our money was spread thin, even with paying for play versus anyway. So I never felt like we could do, like, a lot of schools wanted to host things. We could host things. We have a nice space to host tournaments where you parents could come and actually see things. But just if I'm being completely blunt, the way the season was scheduled, it just never felt like I had the energy to, the kids had the energy to, other schools weren't willing to come because they were also exhausted. And now with an open fall, those things become a much bigger reality. So when Ms. Hartman here in a little bit is going to talk about like some of the things we have planned for this fall, you'll see, okay, this fall is something we should be excited for. Another thing that I have done, so you may be wondering, what are these Wednesday things? I've heard it called Wednesday practices. They're not official practices. Because I wanted to keep like camaraderie up, people getting to see each other, getting hyped for the esports team and that kind of stuff. I asked the state and the district, okay, can we have, similar to like how other sports have open gym, open field, whatever, can we do something similar? And they said yes. So that's basically what the Wednesdays are. Is it's not a gym. We're not going to the gym foyer. They're just coming to the same room they compete in my room, but it's open for them. It's also open to, because of the way we're doing it, new players. So if there's players who weren't sure and they were interested in joining the esports team, but they were a little nervous or they wanted to meet the people or anything like that, this is our time to invite and grow this program as much as we can leading into the spring. So that's an important thing to note, is that on Wednesdays, Coach Rinsenbrink and I are just monitoring the kids in my room. The more we pack the room, the more people are gonna come and join. I would love a world in which every single game that we offer has enough kids for 2 teams, and it looks like, based on the numbers that we're seeing in these Wednesday afternoons, that is looking more and more like a real possibility than it did over the summer, when a lot of kids were messaging me saying they weren't even sure if they wanted to play this fall because of how tired they were feeling and things like that. So I just wanted to bring that to your attention as parents, that this is something that's been going on, and these are why we made the decisions that we did. So that's why we're not competing in the fall. And it's, again, not just us. It is most of the state is following suit with this idea of, let's just focus on the spring in terms of the competitive season. So because I don't want to take up too much of your time, I do want to give you an idea of, okay, some of the things that we are going to be doing this fall. We plan to fundraise and knock that out as much as possible, so we're not fundraising in the middle of the season. We plan to host other schools for tournaments, which would be a lot of fun. We plan to have a day where we have our students teach the next generation, so like elementary age and maybe even middle school age kids at Lafayette. We want to do all these things, but I feel like the best way that we could do those things is if we have essentially a fall tryout, even though we're not competing this fall. So next Wednesday, we are going to have tryouts, and basically, if they participate in those, I as coach am going to guarantee that they have a spot in the spring. So you don't have to be stressing about like, oh, they're gonna fundraise all fall, but not even get to play in the spring or not be on the team in the spring. No, if they're participating this fall, I want them on the team. And I want to save that spot for them. And then we'll have another tryout in the spring for anyone who is like there's band kids who just don't have the time right now to commit to any of this, but they still want to play on the esports team in the spring. That's fine. But for the kids who are ready to commit and want to be there, I want to open this up and make sure that they aren't feeling like they're going to dedicate a lot of time in the fall to something they'll just lose in the spring. That wouldn't be fair at all. A couple of housekeeping things that I do have to warn you all about that are new this year. One, Lafayette for the first time in its, I think in its history, but you'd have to figure that out. I'm not exactly sure. They're going to charge a fee like the other high schools are in the state for competing, and unfortunately, that doesn't go to play versus. That's just like a all sports will pay a $25 fee. We're very lucky. We've never had to do that. I know some other schools, I can't remember which one it is. I know that they pay like $75 per kid towards their, it just goes towards the general athletic budget. So that if I ever was to ask, hey, King Solver, we need some money, there actually is some money. Whereas right now, because he's never taken a donation and his predecessors have never taken, not donation, sorry, the fees, there actually isn't like, everything that we have to do has to go through the district instead, which makes it very unlikely that we'll ever get any of the things we ask for. So that's important to note. The play versus costs have gone up. So come spring, it's going to be about $80 a kid there. So right now we're looking at about 105. And then with every kid who does any sport at Lafayette, there's always this insurance fee, which they forgot to collect last year. So they waived it. But that's $25 per kid. But it's not, if they're competing in any other sport, they only pay it once. So let's say they're playing in soccer. They pay $25 to the insurance fees for soccer. That lasts for every sport they do for the rest of the school year. So if they did soccer, basketball, esports, swimming, all these different things, they only pay 25 once. It's not a repeating fee. So that's some housekeeping. So that's going to come to $130. And I know that most of us can't necessarily afford that, which is again why let's use this fall time to fundraise and help as best we can. So next Wednesday will be the tryout. And then the following Wednesday, I want to have an in-person parent meeting. We're going to pass out chocolates for the kids to sell in class. We're going to make sure we talk a little bit more in detail about some of these things. But I think in terms of all the things I wanted to tell you all for tonight, to make sure you understood why we're not competing in the fall, what I want as a plan for us, what are we doing on Wednesdays, why is your kid staying after school on Wednesday, do they have to be there, all that kind of stuff. Yes, Mrs. Hartman just wrote in the chat, September 20th is the first in-person parent meeting and booster club meeting right after. It'll be right after open gym, so if you're picking your kid up, you'll be there anyway. So that's, that timing works out. Is the fee to the athletic department for every sport or just once like the insurance fee? That is a great question that I do not have an answer for. I'm going to make a note that I need to email King Solver and ask him that. I do not know. And I don't want to lie to you and pretend like I know. King Solver, athletic fee. Thank you for that question. I didn't think about that one. Oh, the last thing that's got to come from me, and this will sound like a shock, but this is coming from Dr. Orr, our principal at Lafayette. All sports, so it used to just be like some sports did it, like the girls basketball team has had it for however long Coach Denton's been in charge. She's had a player contract. Now I think Coach Orr liked what she has as a model, in terms of saying you're representing Lafayette, you agree to that, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to have a player contract. I want you all to see that our first in-person parent meeting. And if you have suggestions or concerns, I want to be able to talk about that with you all. But I would rather do that in person where you all can see a physical copy of it and we can talk about that together. So uh, that's why I'm not. There's nothing for you to have tonight. But I can say that it's not necessarily new to Lafayette. It's just new to all sports at Lafayette. There's just been some teams that did it. We didn't do it. Can we pay the fee instead of fundraise? Um, I I'll leave that up to the boosters and Mrs. Hartman. Um, for a lot of money things, I as the coach have to wash my hands clean of a lot of things, so that it doesn't come back to bite me. Fundraising covers far more than just that fee. That is true. We have a lot of things that we would like to raise money for, equipment like controllers for the Rocket League team or the Smash team or different things like that. We want to be able to have these things, and a lot of times some of that stuff comes out of very generous players' parents' pockets to donate to the school. But yeah, we have a lot of other small expenses that we would like to fundraise for instead. I'm gonna, Miss Hartman, I made you a co-host, so I'm gonna turn it over to you. Well, actually, sorry, Renz, do you want Coach Renzenbrink? Do you want to talk at all?
Yeah, I'll just introduce myself. If you're not familiar, if I'm a new face, whatever. This is my third year with the esports team, third year at Lafayette, third year teaching. Um, Outside of esports, I am a chemistry teacher. So if any of your kids need any sort of science help tutoring, sometimes that takes place in Discord or at our open gyms. Um, I help out with the Rocket League team, Madden team, TBD, because we had two seniors last year that graduated, but I think there's some interest this year. And then helping out with Mario Kart going forward. But I think one thing that stands out to me, which this isn't like my great insight, it's stuff that I've smart things that I've heard Griffith say in the past, is that it's not necessarily that we're doing less this fall semester. There is like less of a hit the ground running pace of like pressure play versus, but I think there's excitement in that we can do some new things which feel more than just like following play versus schedule. So it's not like esports isn't going to exist this fall season. We're going to try to do some fun things for each team. I know we have some things lined up already, um, but it's not just going to be like waiting until the spring, but kind of taking advantage of. For a while, we've been kind of complaining about the red tape around play versus, and we at least kind of have like a best of both worlds this year of fall semester we can kind of do our own thing, experiment, try some new stuff, and then in the spring we'll be able to do the like current official khsaa state tournament for play versus. But that's really all I have. um, if any, I think currently it actually has my email here as my name, so my contacts there, I'm in the Discord. I'll make sure that's all shared at the parent meeting too. But if you ever need to contact me separately, I am here as well.
Peng or not, Michael Hartman wanted to talk really quick about what is some stuff about the booster, so I'll turn it over to him first.
Hi, everybody. My name is Michael Hartman. I'm the president of the Booster Club. This is our second year in existence, and it's we're a little ahead of schedule, a little ahead of things this year than we were last year, which is great. I'm not going to talk too much detail because I'll explain a lot of things more at the parent meeting in 2 weeks. But really, the primary reason we exist is to fundraise for equipment, consoles, games, some things we did last year. We had a national expert on the physical therapy issues related to esports, like carpal tunnel and stuff like that. That was really good, and so there's some things like that, some expenses that are really useful to fundraise for, in addition to how incredibly expensive Play VS and all that stuff is. Our fundraising is not crazy intense. Like if you're familiar with other sports, our older daughter did cheerleading. The fundraising was epic and constant. We only have a couple of things we do, primarily sell chocolate, sell banner ads, and we're doing a couple of cool camps this year that'll be really fun. Really help grow esports in the state at the same time that we fundraise. So we've got some really cool things we're going to do this year. The most important thing I need to say is that we would really love to have more parents involved actively in the booster club. For example, we'd love to have a parent rep from every single sport on the board and a couple more board seats like a fundraising chair, an activities chair, some things like that. But we'll talk more about that in 2 weeks. So if you think you're interested in being more active on the board or in the booster club, we're extremely excited about that. Pang and I, our daughter is a senior, and so we created this booster club, all the legal things and all the bureaucracy, and obviously we're running it again this year. But we're not going to ditch you. We're going to hang around for at least one more year, even after Mina's graduated, to help transition because we're very passionate about esports. It's meant a lot to both of our kids who've done it here at Lafayette. It was they both benefited. Colleges were excited about the fact that it affected scholarships, not just direct esports scholarships, but even they were excited to find scholarships for them because of their participation in esports. So we've been extremely thankful. Coach Griffith, I don't want to embarrass you, Coach, but he's one of the most engaged coaches, I don't know, student advisors. I don't even know. There's not enough things to list. He's been such an important person in the lives of both of our daughters. Um, we don't want to just pass it off and not help. So we're going to hang around for at least one more year to help in the transition to whoever takes over in the booster club, just because it's meant so much to us and our family. But we'll talk a lot more about that in 2 weeks. I just wanted to briefly explain what the booster club was, what we do, what we exist for, and then I'll let Pang explain a few other things.
All right, thank you. I am just going to quickly say that I just posted a link in the chat. Let us know if you can't figure out how to open the chat just in case, but I'm going to post it also on our Discord. This is just a parent forum for anybody who can help, but it's also a way for me to collect emails for parents who want to stay informed. So please fill this out if you can, spread it around to other parents. Kids, if your parents aren't here, please give it to your parents so that I have a way to contact them. We want to be able to keep everybody as up to date as possible. We're trying to expand some social media things. We're really trying to get parents to be able to know what you're up to and how they can help. The esports team is relatively new. We're not as established as, say, like some of the more traditional sports. So we have a lot of building we still need to do, which is why we're trying to get this booster club up and running to support this team long after we're gone. So anything that you can even if you can just give us some ideas, that's help. So right now in the fall, we've never had this time before because like we said, we were constantly competing. We've had this time. We want to build the esports team to be more than just, competition after competition after competition. We want it to be a team. We want the parents and the kids to have opportunities to get to know the sport better, connect with each other better. So I'm also going to post our this is a very tentative schedule for what we have planned. The one thing that we have planned for sure is we're doing a fundraising night on September 27th from 5 to 8 p.m. Again, that'll be right after the esports team. We're going to go to Gaddytown. We get 20% of everything raised. I'll be sending out flyers for you guys to pass around to people or post on your Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or whatever it is that you use. Or send to relatives. We want to make sure that we fundraise, but while we're fundraising, we're teaching the kids, important life lessons as well as getting together as a team. So if you can take the time to fill out some forms, hopefully we'll see you guys in 2 weeks at the first parent booster meeting. And that's about it from me this time. We'll have more for you all. And please, if you think you have even a moment to volunteer, we'd really appreciate your time. Thanks a lot.
When is the first fundraiser again? Okay, so there's a document that Pang posted. I'm going to share it though, in case like for the people who are not going to be here tonight, won't be able to see unless I shared my screen. So let me share screen one. No, not that screen. This screen. Okay. Can you all see this? Okay, cool. I see some thumbs up. Okay. So yeah, the first fundraiser. So in 2 weeks from today, when we meet in person, we'll pass out the chocolates. So that's technically the first fundraiser that we're doing. We'll pass out the chocolates to everyone there. That's that parent meeting that is gonna happen in my room at Lafayette at 5 o'clock. Then September 27th, so a week from there, Gaddytown will be allowing us to. I don't know if you've ever seen for some of the other things they do, like Canes or different places where, like, if you go and spend your money, then the team gets a certain percentage of things. Gaddytown has been awesome, and they've stepped up to help us fundraise. So I think it's really cool for all the kids. We can all wear our jerseys. I, as coach, will also wear my jersey. For kids who don't have a jersey yet, that's fine. We could just wear Lafayette stuff. But I do think that would be an awesome time for all the kids to be together, bond a little bit, cross games. We also have here in October 14th an esports day camp for FCPS middle schoolers. So we're going to invite as many middle schools as we can and just try to teach them some of the games that they could be playing when they get to high school. Our two of our teams, because they made it to the top 8 last year, UK is hosting a small tournament. I think they're only doing League, Smash, and Rocket League, so that's why you don't see Mario Kart here. But they're gonna have some of our teams compete, so we're gonna go cheer them on. It's just like a fun invitational. It's not. I mean, we're gonna try to win because we always like to win, but it doesn't count for KHSA. It's just gonna be like, hey, we're gonna go there and we're gonna win. And then Saturday, November 18th and November 19th, we want to host here at Lafayette. So before Thanksgiving break and all that kind of stuff, before a lot of the hecticness of finals and things like that really get underway, we want to host a Smash and Mario Kart tournament in our school because we found that those games run really, really smoothly, even without internet. So even if the internet goes down for us, we can still host that. And so that's something that we're looking at doing November 18th and November 19th. Obviously, those are tentative dates right now, and they're pretty far off, but I just wanted it on your radar. These are the kinds of things that we would like to be doing this fall. We're going to try to do more things like the Gaddytown thing, but right now that's the only one we have scheduled. Ms. Hartman and I talked about how it'd be fun if we could do this as a once a month type thing. So almost like a team, get together outside of school for bonding and team synergy and all that kind of stuff, while also fundraising technically. So that's going to be a lot of fun. That's not something we've ever been able to do before. The only thing we ever could do was a team dinner after the season ended, and most of us were pretty exhausted. So, all right. Okay. Does anyone have any questions before we call it a night tonight? Let's stop sharing. Rustic Grant, it says you raised your hand. I'm not super familiar with Zoom, even though we did Zoom for years. You can just unmute and talk if you'd like.
Yeah, just are they actually starting what I guess my son says games or practices next week, or when does the season start?
So what I had said earlier was that unlike previous years where we would compete in the fall and spring, we've opted out of competing in the fall so that we could do more team building things and avoid burnout. So the things that are happening on Wednesday is an open gym where when they are not swamped with homework and want to play or compete against other people or feel like they're getting ready for the year or whatever it might be, we're Coach Rinsenbrink and I are monitoring them in my room so that they can come and do that and have that space to do that. Next Wednesday, we will have a tryout that is, yes, we're not competing this fall, but anyone who shows up on that day, I will guarantee a spot for the spring. So that way I don't want any kid fundraise all fall and then come in the spring and then not make the team. That sounds ridiculous, right? So what I want is to say, okay, if you're showing up this fall, you're on the team. Like you're guaranteed a spot, no matter what. So that's what we want to do. So that way we can go and start fundraising, start doing some of these team activities and things like that. And kids will know that they're actually on the team and not just, showing up only to find out come spring that they didn't make the team. I know some sports do things like that where they'll have like off-season conditioning or whatever, and a kid shows up all the time and then they don't make the team, and that can feel really bad. And I don't want to do that. So that's kind of what's going on now. But the official KHSAA season, we are only going to compete in the spring season, which begins in January. What time is the tryout next week? Right after school from 3:30 to 5. Any kid who can't make it, we'll try to be flexible with. They just need to talk with us coaches, or you as parents can reach out to us.
Do they bring their own devices?
So not necessarily. A lot of the Switch games like Mario Kart and Smash, enough of the kids bring their own devices that there's plenty to share to compete. In League of Legends and Rocket League, we have the computers in the room that can run those games. Yes, good news, by the way, Rocket League is currently running on those computers. For how long? I don't know.
One thing with the Rocket League is maybe bringing a controller if anyone is new to Rocket
Yes.
League. We don't have a ton of controllers in the lab, but we have the actual system.
We don't have any controllers, but we do have the system to run it on. As for Madden, Coach Vincent mentioned it earlier. Can you bring your own mouse and keyboard? Yes. And if you want to leave it in my room during the school day so you don't lose it, or people don't, you don't have to hold it all day, I will lock it away. I have a way to lock those things up. So.
And what is your room number?
107A.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, no problem. Okay, and then let's see. Regarding the Madden thing, we're basically looking to see if kids are interested in competing in it. Because last year we had 2 seniors and they were the only 2 people who competed. And they're gone now, so technically we don't have anyone competing in it. So, whether we have a team or not will just depend on that interest, right? And whether they're going to show up or not. So, but we would love to continue to have a team. We have a lot of trophies in Madden. We would like to keep that going. It's just, our players are graduated and gone, so we need the next generation to come up. Any other questions?
I have a quick comment, if that's okay. There's been several kids that have asked if they could be a part of the esports team, but they don't particularly want to play. They want to do the tech side of it all. And I've told them that you're very open to that and that kids are welcome to do that. They're still part of the team. They're just taking care and learning about the parts of esports that they can go on to use beyond the games themselves.
Yeah, so this is actually really good. There's one kid who approached me and said he wants to one day be a social media manager for a team, and this would be great for him. He's not necessarily wanting to be a part of the team. I think that sounds awesome. There's another kid who was talking about wanting to learn to produce the streams for that stuff. He loves esports. He just doesn't want to compete in the games we have, and wants to be like a producer or a caster or something like that. I think that's awesome. And there are definitely a lot of opportunities out there past this that they can take that onto and show, hey, look, I've already been doing this. So yes, we'll have those spots open for any kid who wants to do that. Yeah, for sure. Anything else?
In fact, we already have a new account created for the Booster Club specifically, so that we can turn kids loose on that and they can stream games and all kinds of stuff without coach having to worry about bearing the responsibility for that.
Yeah, before sorry. Okay, really quick, but before when I was the one with the account, I didn't feel comfortable having any kids use my stream to stream the games because things can happen, right? I didn't want to be personally responsible for all that, if I'm being completely honest. But now that the boosters are taking on that responsibility, we have a lot of good ideas about similar to like how the newspaper class at Lafayette has a lot of students run their accounts on different things. We could do something similar, especially since my hands will be washed of it being tied to my email and my stuff, right? Holly says you have a question.
Yeah, hi. Sorry, I joined late because we were at a basketball meeting. So my son is a freshman. He's interested, but we're also going to be trying out for the boys basketball.
Yeah.
That I believe is probably going to be pretty all-consuming for the fall and in through the season, which is through February, I believe.
Yes.
I'm wondering, have you had any students before that have been on both teams? And I'm just wondering how feasible that might be. Does that make sense?
It does. We've had kids be on multiple teams in other sports, but not necessarily basketball. So that'll be new to me if I'm being completely fair. I'm unsure. But what I would say is, if he tries out for the team and doesn't make it, he has a spot here. And if he does make it, I will do everything I can to make sure that it's something they can balance. Whether the basketball coach on their end wants to, I don't really have, I don't have say in how basketball runs their stuff, right? But I've been very accommodating towards kids who want to be multiple sport athletes. I think that's great. So I try to encourage it. What I would say is the odds of them starting in both sports when they're splitting their time is also a little lower. The kids that I've had like in the past that wanted to do track in this or tennis in this and things like that ended up feeling like they had to choose one because not because I pushed them to, but because they felt like they were stagnant in both instead of getting better at one. And so that was their choice, right? But at the end of the day, I think it's cool to encourage multiple sport athletes because they're high schoolers. I think it's, you know what I mean? Like, I think that's awesome. If they're capable of that, that's even better. So I encourage it.
Okay. And we're honestly not sure how basketball is going to go because there's a new coach this year.
Yeah.
And we just left a booster meeting and it seems to be quite chaotic. Apparently there has been no booster liability insurance or tax records for several years that have been submitted. So basketball can't even fundraise until all of that gets in order, and that can't get in order until they get out of the hole money-wise, which we were very enlightened to a lot of things this evening at the meeting. So I'm not really sure how everything is going to go, but I didn't know how open you were to even if we can communicate well to attempt. And I know conditioning starts next week for basketball right after school. So
no, and that's fine. I mean, that's
okay.
Yeah, I will be as accommodating as I can be. I if they have a new coach, I really don't know them. And that's so I can't even speak to their character or anything like that. What I can say is our booster, I feel like we're in great hands.
Thank you. I wanted to jump in and say to everyone, 100% of our paperwork is submitted for last year and this year. We have liability insurance. We are a legally functioning LLC in the state of Kentucky. I run a business myself. I run a video game company, and so I have some. And I was once a lawyer a long time ago. I have some familiarity with these kind of documents, and we are completely. All of our stuff's in, so don't worry. You're not participating in a booster club that's like running some kind of Wild West situation. And I also personally attended the booster club meeting that Fayette County had for coaches and booster clubs. So we take following the rules and forms very seriously. But yeah, so you don't have to worry.
We were quite shocked. I don't know if it was because we have a new coach and now the new principal between what happened years prior and who dropped the ball, but it was dropped big time. So there's a lot of pickup that's going to have to be happening. But anyway, thank you so much.
I appreciate that. That's a great question because again, we tend to have a lot of kids that want to be involved in a lot of things, and I do my best to make sure that's accommodating. I'm just going to be, again, blunt. Sometimes kids spread themselves thin, and it makes them worse at both. And I won't discourage them, from doing those kinds of things. The last thing that is new this year, this is important to note. Kids who want to play multiple games, since we're only competing in the spring, I'm fine with it. In the past, we said if you're competing in Rocket League, it's only Rocket League. We'll be way more open as coaches this year to trying to do that. Obviously, if they're just not capable, like they're like, oh, I want to play Smash, but they're just not really doing that well at that, then they need to stay in their lane. But if they're like, oh, I'm competitive in multiple games, I could be, a starter in multiple games. I want to encourage that kind of stuff. We just in the past, to avoid burnout, really had to avoid that kind of stuff. I do want to say at this point, if anyone has extra questions, they can stay. But otherwise, if you want to go, make sure I'm gonna relink that form for anyone who joined a little late, so that we can like message parents and things like that here in the chat. If you've already filled out that form and you don't have any questions, you're good to go. I'm gonna stop recording now.